And there we are, I think. So finally we've gotten past needing the animations. That's only partly true. I realized because I've got like 2 physical animations, but I also want a projectile attack for this guy. I forgot about that. So we're going to need to go back to animations at some point. We also need to do the taunting animation. But for now I think I want to get the programming for this guy in place first. Also, there might be more background noise than usual. I've got my window open because it's like literally like 25 degrees Celsius in here, which is not that bad, but it's also like by the time the stream ends, there's only going to be like a couple of hours before I actually like go to sleep. So I want this room to cool down as much as it can. For now though, what are we going to do to get started with the code for this guy? First and foremost, this is the arena where he's going to be, and whenever we enter this room, the engine crashes. So maybe, just a thought, we should fix that first. And the reason that it crashes, I'm pretty sure, is because somewhere in this blueprint, we have like a behavior tree, like a BT asset, that it's trying to apply to the controller, but it doesn't have anything in there, so it's a null value. Probably should just like put a protection layer in that code to begin with, if I'm being real with you. But then again, we're never going to want to have one of these enemies, like one of these bosses, even exist without a behavior tree. So the fact that that crashes the engine is just a very good signal of, hey, you forgot to do something. And I'm saying that because I don't want to look into where in the world that code exists, because that seems like a lot of work, and we've got plenty to do anyway. Where are we? I think we're in enemies, characters, bosses, Reaper, and I think in here we just want to make a behavior tree. I did look into setting up state trees instead for at least the boss fights, but I explored that, and you might have seen a video about that on the channel, like a short or something. If you're in Discord, you've probably seen me talking about it like a month ago. State trees are still in development, and as such, they lack one very important feature, and that is proper debugging tools. And specifically with AI, it is quite important to like know what is going on and why certain like branches and why certain decisions are being made by the AI, because it is code that is pretty much like autonomously executing other code, right? So being able to troubleshoot that is quite an important step in like AI behavior development, and lacking any kind of decent debug tools is just a pain. So I'm not going to touch that for any like actual production stuff until at least that exists in there. So we're going to be stuck with behavior trees for now, but that's fine. So let's call this behavior tree Reaper boss, which I think we also need to make a blackboard for, but maybe... What blackboard does this use? Does it use the blackboard for basic demon? Maybe we can just reuse the blackboard for the night boss. That's got a can set tag cooldown. It's got a attack defense state. That's what we need as well. It's got a run location, ability system components, whether or not it's knockback. It's got HP percent, whether or not it can see the player, the distance to the player, whether or not it's attacking, a reference to the player, and a reference to itself. That might be everything we need on this one as well, in which case we can just use the same blackboard. If not, we'll make a copy and do some stuff with that at some point. For now, this doesn't even need to run anything, because the first thing that we're going to do is not even AI related. It just needs to have this so that it hopefully no longer crashes when we load this character in. Let's just to be sure check whether or not the BT asset is now populated in the actual instance as well. It is. Let's load that game. Also, apparently this level doesn't have walls. That belongs to a different streaming level, apparently. Also, yes, I'm watching the Quinton Reviews Nickelodeon thing. Okay. It still seems like it's gonna crash me. That's great. Okay. Let's try to figure out what's going wrong here. Also, let's open up Zoom it so that I can do this for you guys. So, what do we have here? We've got the boss base begin play, CPP 33. That seems like I'm just missing something else there. I do have the boss base class open here because I kind of figured something like this might happen. I'll zoom in a little bit so you guys can read what I'm doing. Layer 33, what, or line 33, rather. Why is... What? Why does this crash the game? Huh? Okay, let's just for shits and giggles, real quick comment that out. And see if... That'll probably break some behavior, still. Weapons... Or is it the thing... It might be the weapon trail thing that is... messing up. That might be the thing that's messing up, actually. That would make a lot more sense, because this line shouldn't be able to ever actually fail. So I'm thinking it's saying line 33, but it means what comes after line 33. Sometimes it's a little iffy with that. Because we've got the weapon trail Niagara component, and we on begin play attach that to the weapon static mesh. Which, of course, if weapon static mesh somehow is not valid, that might be a problem. So that seems like it's more likely to be causing issues, if I'm being real with you. Also, at some point, we're going to need to port it. Well, I don't know if we need to, but I'll probably want to for like rigging and animation related purposes. We're going to need to port this to Unreal 5.4. Because the modular control rigs and the new like animation tools that 5.4 offers are going to make my life a lot easier. You've seen how much of a pain animation and rigging has been over the past month of streams. And I do think that with all the characters that we still have left to do, it is very much worth it to look into setting up more modular stuff. Like, if nothing else, if we can do a modular control rig and I can just like make the one like the finger thing that I have for the rig, it's different from the finger rig that Unreal itself provides. I think mine is better, if I'm being real with you. But if I can just make that a module, I don't have to worry about like applying this in a loop and whatever. Just a module. We've got a rigged up hand. Now, we're probably still going to crash. Because I do think that the thing that I just commented out is not the thing that was causing an issue. But we're about to find out. We still do crash. And now it does complain about... Let's do this from the top to the bottom instead. Because we're getting some issues in a couple of different places here. So we've got activate enemy. Oh, yeah, no, so that's what's happening. What it's doing is it sees an issue in boss begin play, which is an issue in ground enemy begin play, which is an issue in enemy begin play, which is an issue with running activate enemy. I am just an idiot. So this was indeed not the line that was an issue. The line that is an issue was, I think it was in like 133 or something. Let's just scroll down and see if that's right. 133 it said, right? My god, I hate my phone. Which has AI, controller, brain component, stop logic. So I'm assuming that this only runs if AI controller is true. So it can't be the fact that this is a null pointer. It must not be getting a brain component, but that doesn't make any sense. Because if there's a AI controller, there's going to be a brain component. I shouldn't have closed that dialogue, but it does make me think that it might not be relevant. It's still a sign of something going wrong in my code, probably, that I should look into at some point. But I think what might also be part of the issue here is it's trying to... Like, it only does this when the active state by default is false. And we very much for the boss fight want the active state by default to be true. So we might not even really have an issue there. So what is that? I think it's active... I called this something start active. There we go. This is still probably going to be an issue now, actually, because it isn't going to have a reference to the player, and it might use that in something. But for now, let's just... it's very loud, I'm sorry. It's a 124. It still is the brain component issue. Okay, so why is it not getting the brain component? How is that a thing? Let's compare. Also, let's compile real quick so that we have the player reference again, because otherwise I'm going to forget that I commented that out. I'm going to look at my code, see it being not commented out, and I'm going to be very confused. So it's only going to take like 10 seconds to compile again. Let's just compare if there's anything with the night boss that's different. Because I might need to set up a specific AI controller class for it. That might make sense. But even the default AI controller should have a brain component that it can reference. So I don't know why that is an issue. Because I'm not overriding get brain component on any of these. I don't think. So let's open this one up. Gonna put it in there. And then the night boss, which we called test night. So yeah, controller. Its AI controller class is AIC basic land, which has basic land enemy controller, which has a blackboard component and a AI perception component. It's got a couple of components here that it might be referencing. We might need to make a custom one for this specific. For this specific one. But that might solve our issue. So if we just say, hey, AI basic length for you. So at this point, we are like 15 minutes in, and all that we have done so far is trying to troubleshoot why I keep crashing. Which I knew was going to happen because we ended the last stream with just crashing. Hello, black and white. Okay, we have a loading screen. We have a loading screen. Start active is not true on this one. But even so, the fact that it loads that map in general now is a fantastic start. I think that means that we've solved the major issue, because now we can just, yes. We had a different crash. What is that crash? It is find closest enemy, update nearby enemies. Okay, so when we got in range of the boss, oh, I know what happened. It tried to turn on its thingamajig. It's lock-on icon, which it probably just doesn't have. So that's action RPG character line like 536, which, yes, it is a very big class. Give me a break. Need to refactor a couple of these things at some point. 530. Also, just like remove all these things that I just commented out because I'm not using them anymore. That's probably a good start as well. What did I say? 536, 63? I think 536. Something in here. Find closest enemies. I think it was in here. So 36. Yeah, it's this. Oh no, it might not be actually. It might be. Yeah, it's trying to get its health value, but it doesn't have a health value. I probably should have just copied over the Night Boss blueprint and swapped out the stuff that I needed to swap out instead of trying to reconstruct it from scratch, because realistically I'm only going to be making like 7 or 8 boss fights in this entire game. So do I really need to remember every single step of the way of constructing a boss fight blueprint? I probably should, to be fair, because at some point I'm going to need to troubleshoot something that has got to do with that. But I also don't think it's like the most important thing in the universe. We probably don't need this one anymore to be open. Definitely, let's keep this one open for the time being, like the test night. Okay, so the issue was that we have an ability system component here that is not initializing a attribute set. So we have got enemy attribute sets, and we'll just for now make it duplicate the Night Boss default data. And then its lock-on widgets we'll worry about later. It does have it, so it can turn it on and off. That's the only real thing that I really care about. Where the fuck even are we? Somewhere around there. Not around here, apparently. Reaper boss. Night boss defeated. That's not what I want. Reaper boss. There we go. I'm also going to just turn off everything except this, so that it doesn't show, and the same with all tutorial and all the red world maps and this one, so that it only shows the things that I care about in here. So let's save that, and then we want to start active being true. Again, let's save that, because if it's going to crash again, I don't want to have to redo it again. It's also really annoying how it starts me facing away from from the door every single time. Also, I probably should just it didn't save. Yeah, it didn't save that thing. I know what the issue is this time. It didn't save the fact that it's using a different AI controller. Because I changed it, didn't save the asset, and then the engine crashed. So that's kind of on me. Takes a minute though every single time to restart the engine. We've got all the time in the world. That's okay. I'll leave it restarting here. Let's open up this class again. Dock is in here. What did I tell you? It's the wrong fucking class, isn't it? Which is easily... It's not what I wanted to do. Basic land. Again, save that so that we prevent any unnecessary crashes in the future due to... Okay, I'm going to hold the frick on. I'm going to also enable this level real quick, which... Just turn this around 180 degrees. Pretty please. Because that should, in theory, face me the right direction now, right? No, it doesn't. It always faces me the same direction. It's interesting. I probably should also like give it a direction and make it copy its rotation. Anyway, its weapon trail by default is turned on, but that's easy to fix. Also, let's check out the weapon trail itself. I think that's pretty decent. We've got this guy. His scale is pretty good, I would say. Maybe he could be even a little larger than this, to be honest. I don't know why his hitbox is visible in-game. That's a little odd. And we definitely need to disable him on the camera channel for the hitbox. So let's do that first as well. So collision preset is custom, and then the camera channel is going to ignore. Visibility ignore. Let's grab definitely ignore. Everything else block. And then also, why the hell is this thing like visible? what is that about? No, we probably want it to be visible, just hidden in game. And while we're at it anyway, let's bring this door just a bunch closer. Just so that we don't have to walk as far every single time we want to load that other level. Like, this is a lot easier. Cool. Now, the first thing that I want to do is put this thing on... Oh, his character mesh still... I'll get back to that thought in a minute. Give me a second. Because we want the character mesh here to also make it ignore the camera channel so that we can have the camera on the other side of this dude. The first thing that I want to do is, hello everybody joining in, how are you doing all today? The first thing that I want to do is I want this guy to, like, in his idle state, when he's not actively like attacking you, and that's going to be like on a timer probably, I want him to like circle around here, and then when he attacks you, he breaks away from that circle, goes in to attack you, attacks, and then moves back to the closest point on that circle again and keeps circling. That's what I'm thinking about right now. Let's get that circling in place first. And then we will figure out how in the world we're going to do that last part. Because the only real difficult thing about that is the like sampling the closest point on the spline. I don't think there's a function for that. I think at some point I wrote a function for that for my camera on rail system that did exactly that, so we might have to take a look at that. But now, yeah, you see I can put the camera on the other side of him without it. Okay, the weapon still. There's so many fucking things with collision here, man. The weapon still makes the camera freak out, so that's definitely not what we want to do. So the idea being is that we can just make a spline. We just have like a spline actor. Spline mesh actor. Maybe we'll make that a component. We probably can't make that a component actually. That needs to be a separate actor. I'm fairly certain that there is a way to add in a spline as an actor on its own. I mean, worst case scenario, I just make an actor that has a spline in it. Let me real quick Google if there's a better way to do that though. Also, hello, even Steven. Unreal place spline actor in level. I'm pretty sure there's supposed to be a pre-set-up actor that's just like spline actor. Which, hey, I'm seeing my own tutorials about splines in this search result, so that's good. Then again, what a spline actor probably is literally just an actor with a spline component, so maybe I shouldn't be overthinking this. But maybe that has like some preset functions that we could use. Like get spline, for instance. I could have sworn that this was going to do like a thing. Oh, maybe I'm thinking about terrain splines. Maybe you can only do that in terrain mode. Also, probably should set this to level 115. Maybe I can only do this in like landscape mode. Can I? That's definitely not it either. I distinctly remember placing a spline at some point. But the only spline things that I have is a spline mesh actor. Is an actor with a spline mesh component. But that's not what I want, right? That's a spline mesh. I don't want a spline mesh, I want the opposite. I want the spline part of this. Just want a spline. Why can I not delete the spline mesh actor now? Thank you. Now we've got BP mesh over spline, and it's the thing that I made myself, which is frankly like that is just a spline, but it also takes in like a static mesh to do a thing with. I guess we'll just make our own. That said though, this I think this spline mesh actor that exists here might just be Unreal's own implementation of what I made here with my BP mesh over spline. I think it is literally the exact same thing. Like if I just put in, like, I think I have a pipe here somewhere, right? Whatever. Yeah, it's literally a pre-made version of that. I didn't even know the engine came with that. Okay, anyway. Let's just make our own spline. I thought there was going to be a way to do this without having to make separate blueprint class, but it's not that big a deal. It's just an actor, BP, spline, actor. We probably should make this a C++ class, actually. Because I'm going to want to reference this in C++, and I'm thinking, if I want to get that spline component out of this class, it needs to be a C++ class. So let's fix it up real quick. Let's make it a C++ class. New C++, actor, spline actor, and literally all this should be is U property added anywhere. I mean, yes, that is what I want. Thank you very much, Copilot. I'm pretty sure that is what I want. So let's just go with that. And then in the CBP file, we have the constructor for which... Are you going to tell me the thing that I want to have? No, no, okay. It's been a while since I set this up. What is the actual like function name of that again? Something like... there we go, yeah. So we have spline... What did it call it? Spline components. Thank you. Equals create default sub-object, spline component. Oh, that's pretty much all there is to it. That's literally all that we need. So, while we're making new classes anyway, we might as well make our CPP class for the Reaper boss. So new CPP class based off of boss base. Reaper boss. And protected. I don't know if we need anything constructing on this guy. So I just want to add tick. And then create... Why is there no shortcut for that? I need to set that up at some point. And in tick, we're going to do a thing. But we also want begin play, actually. Hold on. Begin play. This is Unreal Engine with VS Code that I'm using at the moment. So that begin play override. And then we'll have some private members as well. And that's mostly spline components. Does that need to be... class, use spline components. I've been trying to get into the habit actually of marking things a little bit better. Especially now that we're using like, we're going to be using like double named yet. Have not yet updated to 5.4. I will for this project though. Like there's a lot, like this project is getting pretty big, so it's kind of scary to be updating engine versions. Last time I did, it was a lot smaller. And the update was from 5.1 to 5.3 because I wanted to use the experimental version of nanite displacement, which is now officially supported, even though you still have to dig into INI files to enable it, which is kind of dumb. But I really needed that for like my floors because, long story short, I don't have anything with a texture here, do I? Is this room? Yeah, this one. Like this is all like displaced. If I go into actually low scalability mode also is displacing it. That's quite interesting. I thought it wouldn't. It shouldn't. Huh, interesting. This is all nanite displays. This is all material driven, right? So if I just go into the mesh for this thing itself, you can see it's nanite enabled. If I change the material for this to literally anything else, it's just a flat surface. All that detail is material displaced. And I really kind of needed that because I wanted all this detail here, but I wanted it throughout my entire game, everywhere this floor is going to be. But the floor is also like world projected. It's not in UV space because I want all these tiles to be the same size throughout the entire game. And I don't want to have to mess about with like the UV size and anything like that. So this floor material that we have here is world aligned from the Z from the top. As you can see on this sphere, it looks real wacky from the sides, but it's always going to be the same size projected. And that was kind of like a thing with other types of fake displacement. Like, I did a video on a couple of different kinds, but those all impact your UVs. But this is not done through UVs, so that doesn't really work. So I needed to have a displacement. So I upgraded to 5.3. Long story short, that was quite a pain because a few of my blueprints broke, which then broke other blueprints, which then broke other blueprints, which then broke other blueprints. So I spent quite a few hours trying to fix that up, and the project size is a lot bigger now. But all the time and headache that I'm going to save myself with animation and rigging with 5.4's features is going to be worth it. So maybe at some point we'll do a upgrading on stream kind of thing. I don't know if I'll do it on stream or not, but that'll be fine. And then we also here want a float for distance along spline. Initialize it at 0. That makes sense to me. The thing with a stream of upgrading to 5.4 is that it might literally just be me upgrading, opening the project, and everything working. That still is a viable, like, that could happen. So I'll probably at some point decide to upgrade, and if it causes a significant amount of like compilation errors and whatever, maybe at that point I'll do all that on stream because it'll be fun to work through. Anyway, let's also make a... I always forget, can new properties be private? It feels like they shouldn't be able to be private, right? But I think they can be. So U property, don't need to be advanced display, just add it anywhere. Float speed, exactly. And then in Reaper Boss tick, we want to set... It's actually a very good question. Spline length is not going to change here, so we're also going to add a float for spline length so that we only have to get it once. So spline length is get spline length, exactly. And here we just put some math at that point. Oh, we also need to add in the super. Very good that you tell me that, Copilot. Super begin play. Otherwise, things are going to break. So what did you... so distance along spline plus equals speed times delta time. That makes sense. If distance along spline is greater than spline length, we set the distance along spline to 0. I actually want to do something different there, but that's fine. Now we've got f vector location, get distance along spline, and distance along spline in world space. That is what I want. That is what I want for the most part. The only thing that I don't want to set this to 0, what I want to do is... If the distance along spline is greater than the spline length, what I want to do is I want to set the distance along spline to minus equal spline length. So that way, if we somehow, some way end up with it overshooting a significant amount, like 100 units or something like that, it's not going to set it to 0, which might make it feel like a little stuttery. It's just going to set it to a value of 100. So it's going to feel smooth all the way around. I think that is a lot better. And again, this all seems to check out for the most part. So, now we need that U property for, let's reorder this actually a little bit, because spline component, that's all fine and good. But we first need to have the spline actor as well. U property, spline actor. Put this all the way down here. And then in begin play, because we're trying to get a spline length out of something that doesn't exist yet. So am spline component is spline actor spline components, which will also require us to put an include for components spline components, and an include for spline actor. And we'll only do this if spline actor. That's not what I want to do. This like that works. Don't get me wrong. It's a little stupid to do it that way though. Well, not necessarily stupid. It's just not the way that makes sense to me. So only if spline actor is valid will we actually try to get stuff from it. Which probably we want to check if spline component is valid, then do the rest of this stuff as well. Just to make sure that I don't end up like crashing the engine for no good reason. There shouldn't be an issue because there's only going to be one of these guys, and once it's set up, so should be fine. But you know, trying to get into some good habits. Speaking of good habits, fucking mark your members. I have a question about the inventory system. In your add item, your input is a data asset, as someone told you can't add data assets to a player's inventory. The data assets is... Okay, so what we have, I'm going to try to make this short because we're doing some other stuff here. What we have is like a inventory, right, with inventory slots. So let's just draw this out real quick. You get the point, right? And we have like a bunch of slots here as well. And each one of those slots has a couple of bits of data. So we've got the like the data asset, and then we've got the number of items in that slot, and some other stuff as well. The data asset itself is a read-only asset in our system. So what that does is it just like it gives the slots the image to display, and it gives the slots the information about how many items should be in there maximum. You don't actually like this goes only one way. The slot doesn't change anything on the data asset. So it's not like the data asset holds the amount of items in a slot. The slot itself keeps track of that. And this is just a collection of data, which is why it's called a data asset, which the slot requests information from. The reason somebody told you to not use data assets, most likely, is because there's only one data asset for like, say you have like a sword, right? So we have like a sword, very well drawn sword, and that has a damage value. Let's say you have a sword in this slot, and in this slot, and in this slot. Because we're all referring back to the same data asset, if those slots then start modifying the data asset for the sword, it will change in all of them. because there's only one data asset. So that's why people tell you not to do that, because if you don't know what you're doing, you end up changing data for something that only should be a read. Like, if you just treat this as a read-only thing, you're fine. You're good to go. This is also the reason that a lot of people make inventory systems with data tables, because in the end, a data asset is kind of just like a single row in a data table, but you can also like put functions in it. And it has inheritance, which is the reason I like it for an inventory system, because you can have item hierarchies and stuff like that, which is a little bit more painful to do with a data table system. But data tables are read-only assets. So you, with a data table, just flat out cannot make the mistake of changing something inside of a data asset or inside of a data table row, because there's literally just no way to do that. But I do like using data assets as long as you're aware that you're only ever reading from it. You're not writing to it. If you're writing to it, you're going to be breaking stuff. So if you're making a sword, going back to that, and your sword has like a durability thing, like in Minecraft, for instance, so we have like durability. That durability is stored on the slot itself. That durability isn't stored in the data assets. You will store the max durability in the data asset. So you can say this has a durability of 100, and that will then be read by the slot. But the slot itself will have the information on, okay, but this particular weapon at the moment only has 50 durability left. You don't store the durability for individual items in the data asset. Data asset only is a template. It's like, it's the blueprint of what an item should be. If anybody is familiar with like Plato's philosophy, like Plato's like fire in a cave, the idea is that there is a like idealized version of everything in existence. So like pretty much like in heaven, there is the perfect version of a cat, and all cats that exist in the real world are shadows or imitations of that perfection of a cat. That's kind of what a data asset is. And now I'm derailing myself too much with philosophy. So we're going to go back to my actual code. This should, in theory, now be all good to go, I think. So let's compile this and see if it screams at me. Oh yeah, I need to close the engine because I'm not going to be using live coding after just adding like 3 classes with member variables and stuff. That seems like it's asking for trouble. So anything that changes at runtime has to be stored in a struct. Anything that has a hard set like icon can be, yeah. Pretty much, yeah. So the data assets themselves only hold the information that you're requesting. Anything that you're going to be changing on runtime, so anything that is slot specific, like instance specific, you want to store in just normal variables. You can combine those into a struct if you want to make things a little bit easier. Linking errors. Fantastic. Okay, enemy Reaper boss. Enemies boss base H. No such. Oh yeah, we have the whole thing about. For some reason, at some point, I added an action RPG project into this directory, and it's been fucking me ever since. So, action RPG projects / all that stuff. I set up macros, by the way, for like compiling, there's still issues. For compiling and adding new properties and I'm just straight up not using them, yeah, this has the same issue. I really should not have done that back in the day. But at this point, like, there's so many classes that I would have to go back over. That's probably easier to just deal with the 2 seconds of inconvenience every time I add a new class and I forget this. Than it would be to go over every single class and remove it again and redirect everything. And I just don't want to deal with that. There might be a way in like the project settings to say, hey, well, no, it's that's the thing though. I was going to say, hey, every class that exists, just add like this string in front of the directory, but it's not every class, right? Because everything that's Unreal specific doesn't need that. So I think I just fucked myself is really what we get back to. Okay. All that said though, in theory, if we go and we say, hey, we have a thing somewhere, we added a spline actor, so we can add that in here now. It's just straight up a C++ class because there's no real reason to make this a blueprint, I don't think. And we say this, and we should make this a closed loop. And this is going to be pretty rough. We'll add some more spline points to this in the future to make this a lot smoother. Hell, I might even just write in a function for it to make sure that it's a somewhat perfect circle. Because that's just like pre-existing math, right? I can just generate like 10 points that create a somewhat smooth circle through math. Just have to look up the actual formula for that. But it might not be needed. This might actually just be good to go. So we have this now, and we can say somewhere in here. Yeah, there's going to be a boss fight at some point when I can actually find spline. What do you mean there's no spline? It's because this doesn't inherit from the right class. That's why. That makes a lot of sense. Class defaults. It inherits from boss base, and it should inherit from Reaper boss. So now, if we go and we look for the spline actor, will be this one. I said that'll be this one. Why are you fucking up? Yeah, spline actor. There we go. You're refusing to give that a value, and that's scaring me. C++ isn't that bad, honestly, once you like get a little used to it. Like, if you're somewhat comfortable with Blueprint, stepping into C++ isn't that difficult. Like, Unreal really takes care of all the scary C++ stuff, like memory management and stuff like that. Of course, if you go like very complex and advanced, then you do have to start dealing with that again on your own. If you're making classes that are like just straight up entirely custom classes that don't inherit from you objects, but I've never run into that, so you're probably fine. So why won't you allow me to put a proper value in there? Spline actor. Yeah, that's really fucking weird. Maybe I need to compile this first for some reason. I haven't done that yet. I mean, there's some logic to that, but apparently not. What could be causing that? Well, first and foremost, let's check out whether or not this crashes. Well, it doesn't. So that means that my, like, protective if statements are doing their job. So that's a grand fucking thing. But this is still really weird. Camera settings, materials. Let's do this some other way. So if we lock this and we say, hey, we select the spline. Why is it not doing that? Unreal actor pointer not populating in editor when picked. I feel like I'm missing something very obvious, but okay, other people have been running into this for at least 2 years, so that's an issue. They're trying to get it by tag, which I guess that works, but that's not really what I want to do. You might need to use the allow private access meta. That might be true. Private access. Do you figure this out? No. I'm just going to Unreal meta allow private access. I'm just going to copy it over because otherwise I'm going to fuck this up. There we go. Meta equals... Just going to copy all this. And remove this first part. I think you're right. I think that's probably the issue. So I'm going to do live coding because I didn't add any member variables. I'm just changing one little thing. I changed the member variables, like information or like properties. So, but I'm thinking you're right. So this probably will now work, right? Still not. I can change this. Just for shits and giggles, I know that this is a bad way to fix this, but I just want to test this out real quick. If I put this in public, is the issue fixed? Which again, is really not a good fix. Probably should look into finding another fix for this issue. But I'm just curious. Yeah, no, it still doesn't actually fix it. I'm curious. If I change this to a actor pointer instead. Very unlikely that this would make any difference. Right? What? Oh, spline component is not member of a actor. Yeah, at this point we do need to cast that. That is true. In which case we're just going to, what is the shortcut for commenting again? Let's just control that. Okay. Been a while since I worked with VS Code. Been doing so much animation and art lately. That's the one downside of being a solo developer is you just constantly are in a loop of forgetting shit. Yeah, so even just like a actor. Hold on. I can add certain actors now. So can I add my spline actor? No. Oh my, I am an idiot. I know what's the issue. I know what the issue is. I know what the issue is. I know what the issue is, and it is none of any of this shit. There we go. Let's get back to where we were at. So, the issue is that an actor can only have a pointer to an actor that exists in the same streaming level as it. Well, it can probably have pointers that don't belong to the same streaming level, but setting things in editor, it needs to be in the same streaming level. And you will see that this thing exists in the persistent world, because I'm an idiot and I didn't change my streaming level. While this thing is properly in the Reaper boss level. So if we just go here and we say, hey, Reaper boss, move selected actors to level, and then we try this again, now it will allow me to do that. And before we actually test that, I'm going to save. Because if this does end up crashing somehow, just good to save, right? And it seems to be moving along. But of course, a speed of 100 once multiplied by delta time is way too low. Speed of 25 even. Let's set that to like 250. It's about 10 times the speed that it was at a moment ago. That seems pretty good. Check this out, and there we go. He's moving. He do be moving though. He do be moving. And I can catch up to him if I want to. And the wonderful thing is that if I now want to like programmatically in his behavior tree at any point say, hey, actually move faster because you're now in like a different phase, he should now be moving faster, right? So if I want him to move like even faster, he's not. The fuck? Why aren't you speeding? You should be very speedy. Why aren't you? Because right now, if I replay it now, he's gonna be zooming. You see? Absolutely fucking zooming. But for some reason, he doesn't seem to be live updating. Which is weird. Like if I set this to 0 now, he's still zooming. What that's about? That boss is Mr. Speed. He comes out. He very much is. It's a little weird though that he doesn't seem to be using updated values. Because he's directly using this variable. I'm glad to hear that my gas tutorials are doing a good job. I'm hearing it from quite a lot of people that they're appreciating specifically like the gas playlist or the full upload that I also did, which is kind of the reason that I made those, because it took me such a long time to get familiar enough with gas itself to be working with it, because frankly there's just not a lot of good resources out there, and I don't want to like pat myself on the back here. But I was like, I think I can do better than most of the resources out there, to be honest with you. So I'm very glad every time somebody comes in like, hey, I like your gameplay ability system stuff. I'm like, thanks! This is why I made it. That's why I make everything, but specifically that, because there I personally went through the hell that was the lack of information. Anyway, I think we set it to like 250. We'll worry about that not updating properly later. For now, this works. Let's get into the behavior tree, I think. Actually, sets focus. I think we need that to be the get AI controller. Control actor. Self. This. No. I need a macro for that as well. Set focus. New focus is player. Sure, we'll just do it like this. I just want to see, I think this should always make him still look at the player. We might need to write that into a function as well to give it proper like interpolation so that it doesn't snap around too much. But let's see if this does what I wanted to do. This already has a maximum rotation. So that's the basic idea, is that he's going to be turning around here, and he's always going to be facing the player. I'm thinking that we probably just want to make him a tiny bit bigger as well, to be honest with you. I just don't know. We probably should do that in the blueprint itself. Right, that seems probably smart to do. So let's do this like 1.5 times the size. Does that make sense? I feel like these boss fights should be relatively large in comparison to us. Because it'll make it, on the one hand side, it'll make it easier for them to hit me without me being able in range to hit them. On the other hand, what will happen is we'll be way too easily be able to like get close to him, too close for him to actually hit me. But I think that this is a pretty good size. But at this size especially, I do think that we want them to be a little bit faster. This is like really getting into like the tiny little details of which we'll probably only actually want to do once the rest of the programming is in place. Yeah, this might be a little bit too fast then again. The question is, can we catch up to him? Like, very slowly, but that's pretty much good enough. I might replace that focus thing that we just did with a custom function to do the rotation. For now, just doing the focus I think is fine. But it does kind of make him snap around when we are very close by, and I don't really like that, to be honest with you. So, we'll see. We'll see how we end up dealing with that. But now, let's put this into its own function. So we have We can just keep this and begin play, that's fine. But we want this entire thing to be, can I just like right click and wrap in a function or something like that? Like, no? Would have been nice if that's a thing. Kind of makes sense that it's not though. Functions. Void set to move along spline. Move along spline. Which does need to take in a delta time. You were entirely right. I was going to remove that, but it does need to take in a... yeah. And then we'll just take all of this. And we'll make a U property. Blueprints, read writes. Doesn't need to be added anywhere actually. And that will be a bool. Is moving is not actually very descriptive. Let's call this B is on spline. And now we'll just check if is on spline. Else move towards player. I mean, it's not wrong. We're not doing that in here. So we're going to get rid of this else. But that is what we're going to be doing. Okay, so now that's in its own function. And we can more easily turn it on and off. Without it being like majorly confusing. Should not be... Oh, blueprint read write should not be used on private members. But I think if we do a meta, right? Now if we do meta is allow private access. We're missing a parenthesis. or a bracket. Or we're missing one of those. So yeah, that's where allow private access comes in. Is to allow that. Because strictly speaking, any class that's going to be accessing this is going to be a child class because it's going to be a blueprint. And as such, child classes can't see private members. Needs to be in protected. That's what protected is for. But this allow private access kind of fixes that. How does it fix that? Couldn't tell you. No idea. It just does. Okay, so what I'm thinking is we make a gameplay ability for dashing. I'm kind of thinking how we're going to do this, right? Because what we have is, let's see, enemies, characters, bosses, people. There we go. Okay, so what we have is we have a couple of different things, right? We're going to have the attack where he teleports. So let's just mark that as a T, where he teleports to one of the 5, I think it's 5, pillars around the arena at random, and then he dashes toward the player. He's also going to have 2 just normal swiping attacks. So we're just going to... I'm very good at drawing, as you can see. But for that, he's also going to need to like do one of those dashes. So what I'm thinking is we'll probably, funnily enough, maybe want to do it like this. So we have the normal dash ability, and that is going to then have a couple of child classes where the two normal attacks is just dash, and then at the end of the dash it triggers a event dispatcher, which allows the like animation for the attacks to play. So it's going to be as easy as that. Actually, it's as easy as that for all of them, isn't it? No, yeah, no, it's not. No, it's not. Because the other one needs to involve the teleporting as well. And I don't know how that's going to work. No, that should actually be quite easy. No, okay. I'm just going to show you. So we'll make a gameplay ability. And we'll call this gameplay ability, rather, GA Reaper dash. And all that this is going to be doing is activate ability. It's going to set a variable here for player location. And for that we're going to simply just like get player character, get actor location. Right, so we just save that information, and then we move do root motion, apply root motion, constant force. And what that will do is it will take the actor location for the avatar as well. And then just get the direction between these, which is simply... I always forget what direction it is. I think it is my direction minus target direction will give us the direction. And we'll just normalize that. Normalize. And that will be the world direction. And then we'll give this a strength, which is the speed that it's going to be moving at. I will have to just play around with this, to be honest with you. And it'll do that for... two seconds. And we can also supply a curve for strength over time if we wanted to, which is quite funny. And then set velocity on finish will be 0. Clamp velocity on finish will 0. Enable gravity. We actually need to disable gravity on our guy. I forgot about that. Now the issue with this, actually, is that we can't prematurely abort it, I don't think, when we reach the player. So maybe this is actually not what we want to do. Alternative is apply root motion. What do we do for the attack dash for the player? How do we set that up again? let's check this out real quick. We have characters as well, player, gas, gameplay abilities. We have a player attack somewhere in here. Sword-based attack, which inherits from... Oh, that's it. Okay. Okay, so this is the root movements, and we do root motion to force over duration. Is that a different node? Hold on. Oh, it's constant force in this case. Okay, so... And this gives a target location in. Okay. So we need to apply root motion to constant force. No. It's not a constant force. That's the entire fucking point, isn't it? Root motion to force. There we go, target location. So we don't even need to do all that like calculating stuff and normalization stuff and whatever. We can just say, hey, player location, that's where we're going. And we'll be doing that in... that's the issue, because now it's always going to be reaching that... which I guess actually is fine for the boss fight. Yeah, that's actually fine for the boss fight. So yeah, the issue would be, and that's why here it has like a little bit more like math setup for everything, is because this is always going to get you to your target location over the period. So you can't clamp like the speed of your character. If you tell your character like you're going to be moving to a location on the other side of the world within a second, you're gonna be moving fast. Restrict to speed to expected. It does says that. I don't know what that means, because it definitely doesn't clamp your speed to like your character movement or anything, which makes sense because you can do this to things that aren't character movement. So I don't really know what this does. Actually, that's an interesting thing. Can I like open this in C++ and C? Probably can. Probably should check that out at some point. But for now, this will do, and we'll do it over a period of 2 seconds. We'll refine this at some point where we get that duration calculated based... Well, let's do that now, actually. What we can do is we can just get the distance between those 2 points. So we can just distance... and the lower the distance is, the lower the duration has to be. So I guess we just like divide this by like 50 or so. This is why I hate Blueprint. Like, math and Blueprint sucks. So that means that 100 units is going to take 2 seconds. Yeah, no, we should definitely divide this by more. Like, this is 1,000 units, 2 seconds. That might be a little too much. So let's divide this by 100, which is 100 units over a second. 250 units over a second. That seems pretty good speed. Let's do that for now. So here we have the on-timed out or on-timed out and destination reached. As you can see in this one, just hook both of those up to the same execution pin, to be honest with you. So at that point we will play montage and wait. So again, we're just going to hook both of these up to here, whichever happens first. And then the montage to play will be a variable, which, yes, that could be a soft reference. Do I care? No. Attack montage. And on blend out, we will end the ability. So this is the basic setup for the dash move. We just dash toward the player and attack. That said, I think we also need to implement... fuck. I think we need to do a little bit of redesign of like the abilities in general. Because the normal enemy abilities that do this as well have like a whole bunch of code, I believe. Which I need to like put into a function to calculate damage and apply damage rather. Based on like gameplay attributes and stuff like that. Let me check that out. Maybe I already did that and I forgot. But I kind of doubt it. So we have basic demon attack animation. No, that's definitely not where I am at. The knight has like a couple of attacks, right? So we have, yeah, gameplay ability, play basic attack animation. Which, yeah, doesn't have that yet. So what this does is just plays a basic attack animation, plays montage and wait. And then it has wait for and deal damage, which is an event, which we can still override, I believe. So that just, after we start playing the animation, it's just going to wait for an overlap event to send through, and then apply damage and knockback and stuff like that. And it also calculates, hey, if the player now has more than or less than 0 HP, we kill the player. But this entire thing needs to exist in a function that is a parent to this class as well. It's just going to be like anything that has an attack in it need to have access to this function easily without necessarily needing to have this in it. So for now, I think we're just going to not be dealing damage and we'll worry about that later. That's my motto in life. We'll worry about that later. And so far, that's done nothing but made my life more miserable. So, now that we have this in place though, this will just be the normal attack for those two attacks, which is just dash and slash. Actually, I just remembered a thing, because we also need to play montage. Do we have like dash? Yeah, we have the dash montage as well. Kicking again down the road. Yeah, more like kicking my misery down the road though. But you're right. Yeah. Okay, so this does complicate things a little bit because I want to either... Okay, I didn't think this through very much. Okay, first and foremost, we need to put that in there. Yeah, no, I think I just got to stick with this, to be honest with you. Just like play that montage, and if that montage... That actually does work out. Okay, so let me actually finish constructing a sentence for once. What we'll do is we play this montage, which is like, I don't know, like a second or so long. Like I think these are frames, right? So this is like, okay, it's about 2 seconds long actually, which is perfect. that's not what I wanted to do. I didn't want to close that. So we'll play that montage. And if inside the time that montage plays, we get to our destination. So if this calculation ends up being 2 seconds or shorter, we prematurely end that montage because we're just going to be overriding it with this. Hold on. We need to play montage and wait instead. That's my bad. So that's dash. But if this is too far away for any reason and dashing toward the player would take more than the length of the montage, what I want to do is on completion of that montage, I want to also do the attack. And can we like end task? We can. So we also want to, if we do finish the dash, we want to end this task so we don't, for some reason, double trigger this as well. So we have two paths here. We can either finish the dashing animation and then attack while we're not close to the player yet, or we can get close to the player, cancel this animation and play this animation instead. Either way, it ends the ability after that. So that's the basic idea for the attack animation. Now, we should just be able to make 2 children of this, which do nothing but just populate. I should expose that. Nothing but populate this with 2 different animations. And that should kind of be everything there is to it. We'll add in some more information about that later. When we have everything set up for it to also apply damage and stuff, we'll need to have certain strength values, like power values, for all that. But that's then going to need to be multiplied by a difficulty setting about which will be changed depending on how many fucking bosses you've beaten yet, because you can beat these bosses in any fight, so they need to skill throughout the game, and there's a lot to do. I'm going to take a quick bathroom break. I'll be back in like a minute to show you what I meant with. We're also going to be using this for the teleport attack, because I think what we can do is we can take all this and say, hey, execute all this like dashing stuff after code that we make for the thing. Pretty much what we're going to be doing, and I really need to use the bathroom, so what we'll be doing is we'll take like the super run function and we'll just put it at the end. So it will run any code that we put in before, and then it will do the whole dashing thing that we just made. That's the idea anyway. I'm gonna take a quick bathroom break. Okay, so that's the idea that we're going to be doing. Let's try to get the ball rolling on that entire idea. Let's allow interrupt. Interesting. Can we like interrupt instead of assign on interrupted, bind on? Oh, interrupting is just when another montage plays on that slot, I'm guessing. That's not a function. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Anyway, so, yeah, what we can do, I think, is going in here, into the Reaper. We can just make a child class of that, and we can call that gameplay ability Reaper dash attack 1. And here we can just say, you see, this has the parent activate ability. This is just like a super function call. So we can just put in our stuff in between. But we don't actually need to do that for now, because what we need to do is we need to go into class default and just say, hey, attack montage, in this case, will be Reaper quick attack 1. And then we can just copy this over. And this will be Reaper quick attack attack 2 montage. And I think we also had a slow attack, didn't we? So let's call this one slow attack. I might change quick attack 1 or 2 into the projectile attack eventually. But for now, let's just keep them as is. And oh, well, what they all should do as well is... that's actually... yeah, it doesn't really matter. They all should also... this is... play basic attack animation, that's the wrong one. Which one are we looking for? Should Reaper dash. Yeah. What they also should do is actually disable the... is moving along spline. And for that we need to cast to... PP Reaper boss. Could cast to the C++ class, but it doesn't really matter. And for that, we will set B is on spline to false. Okay, yeah, no. On end ability though, let's promote this to a variable real quick. On end ability, we need to set that back to true, but then it's going to snap back to whatever the hell place it was at a moment ago. So we're going to need to make something happen there. I don't exactly know what yet. We have a move to word, right? Move to word or something? No? It's quite easy to make. That might have been a Unity function that I just remembered. It's quite easy to make. It's literally just position plus equals direction times speed times delta time, and that's what all that is. So we'll just change that in a moment. We're going to promote this to a variable. I've got like 50 things going on in my head at the same time. It's like not a good way to stay focused. So that way we can on and ability set B is MB is on spline, back to being true. Which it will be moving toward the spline for a moment there, but we haven't implemented that yet, so technically this is going to be true. Yeah, so we needed to say, hey, you need to not be on the spline anymore, because otherwise it's not going to allow like any of this movement. It's going to get overridden by the event tick movement that we have. So now what we're going to do is we're gonna go back into our BP Reaper class, and for now what we're gonna do is we'll just kind of set a timer by event, which will be looping, and every 15 seconds it's going to run this. Initial start delay, let's say 5 seconds. And then we'll make a quick custom event. And then we'll abilities on spawn will be all these abilities. So we have the Reaper dash attack 1, Reaper dash attack 2, Reaper, I should call these Reaper boss, and slow attack. So get abilities. Do I not have that in Blueprint? Get abilities. Sure, I'll do it this way. Random array item. Try activate ability. We'll just, it'll do one of them at random every 15 seconds. Of course, this does need to execute. So in theory, every 15 seconds, it should break away from the spline now, dash toward the player, play that animation, and snap back to the spline. Because we haven't implemented any like interpolation for that yet. We will. Okay. First problem. He's not moving. Why is he not moving? Why is he not moving? Now he's moving. So he did a thing. It didn't quite work the way I wanted it to work, but sure. But that's just a matter of I fucked up some math somewhere, I think. Everything else seems to pretty much be working the way you would expect that to be working. So that's just like this math fucked up a little bit. So we get the distance between these two. Divide that. So let's say that this distance is 1,000. We divide that by 250. That becomes a duration of 4 seconds. Maybe we need to divide this just by a bigger number. Also, I think we do want to make sure that B is on spline is set to true by default. That was the issue. We should do a proper compile in a moment, because I'm starting to feel like I'm a little bit scared that we're going to run into an issue in a moment. I say as Unreal just hangs for a second. That was the scariest moment of my life. Okay, every 15 seconds it should try to dash toward me. Come on. It's the longest 15 seconds ever. Should still be faster. Should still be faster. But again, this is just a matter of we're tweaking this value at this point. So let's make it twice as fast. Also, we want the distance to actually not be the exact player location. We'll want to be the player location minus the direction normalized and then multiplied by like 200 or something like that. So that is normalize need to make some room for this at some point, somewhere around here, and then multiply this by a float. Single precision is fine. Could probably even do it multiply by int, to be honest with you. That way it will try to move toward a place 200 units away from the player. Like if we have, I'm so glad that I found this like little zoom in tool. If the boss is here and the player is here, what it's doing right now is it's moving exactly to this position, which means that it's going to be slashing around this area here, which means that he's going to be missing always. What we want is we actually want the boss to be moving toward like a position around here so that the slash actually ends up connecting with the player. So what this does is it gets the player position, the direction that the player is from the boss. So it just gets like a vector to this direction and then just gets the player position and subtracts 200 in that direction. So it just goes 200 in that direction and then we end up moving to here, slicing there. That's what that does. Probably should make this for testing purposes, like not have that initial 5 second. I thought that initial 5 second delay was going to be a good thing. I don't think that we should have put that there. Just being real with you. I don't think that we should have put that there. Yeah, that's pretty much like, that's good. I like that. Maybe even a little bit faster. Okay, so now let's get like very far away. I'm going to make it faster. Actually, I want to test what happens if I am very close to him when he does that as well. If that causes any like weirdness to happen. I probably should have something where we could do quite a lot with... Oh, hold on, I want to stay close to him. We could do quite a lot. So yeah, I don't know what the fuck happened there. We could do quite a lot with like the directionality of this as well. If he just once every second or so gets the position of the player and samples the nearest point on the spline to it, and then figures out whether or not moving left or moving right. So adding or subtracting to it, to his position. That was actually quite cool. We'll get him there faster. That means that if we like go all the way around and we get close to him on the other side, he actually like moves towards us like that. But he will always still be moving in this like circular fashion. Instead of just always like, now he's just on a track, right? So we probably want to give him a little bit more intelligence than that. And I don't think that will be altogether like too difficult to do, if I'm being honest with you. So now, what I also want to do is I want to go into here and say, hey, your particles. Which ones are those? This is a weapon particle. Weapon trail, there we go. I don't want that to auto-activate. I want that to be activated through code. So we can just... I know it's not the most important thing right now, but it's annoying me. So we're going to do it. Okay, first and foremost, this is going to get set to 0 and this is going to be set to 10 just because it's easier that way to test. And then what I want to do is I want to go into here. No, actually not yet. I want to go to dash, but we have the assets here. So I want to, for all the attacks, make a... I also still need to fix up his weight painting. I forgot about that. I want to make a notify here. Somewhere here. Add notify. New notify. Weapon. Actually, I think I have a notify state for that, right? Can I like open this up in Blueprint? Who's the boss? I'm the boss. I forgot how I programmed this, but I did this in a video. Like I did this in a tutorial video. Like, hey guys, I've been using these animation notify like on off. There's a system for that. So let's let's try to figure out like animation notify death effects is not what I'm looking for, I don't think. Yeah. No, I don't actually think that I made those for the death particles, not for the... Okay. But why is this one called trial then, or trail? Because I probably just called it... That literally just does not exist. Figure that out later. For now, all that I want to do with that is... I probably should make one. You know what? Well, that's going to require me to set up some... I just want to focus on the important things. We'll fix this up later. We'll just add a normal new notify. Weapon on. And then at the end of the swing, a notify for weapon off. This is bad. I made a video about this being bad. I'm doing it anyway. Fuck everybody. Question regarding motion matching is it viable to have a simpler motion matching database run on a non-player character, or should I stick to state machines for them? I'm not entirely sure. I'm not sure how heavy the trajectory component is. I feel like it might be fine, but I also feel like it probably shouldn't be that important for non-player characters. Like, it's probably going to be a little smoother than a normal state machine and blend spaces, but I think that smoothness in transition for animations is mostly going to be noticeable in game feel when it happens on a player character. I don't think that it's honestly all that important for NPCs, but like if it's 10 NPCs, I don't think it's going to be a problem. If you're spawning in 100, you might start noticing some performance hits. on the CPU, maybe. But that's just a hunch. I haven't tested that yet. I haven't really looked into the performance cost for that component. But it feels like... It feels like it shouldn't be that heavy. I mean, it's a little more intricate than just supplying you with the current velocity, I think. Like, it's doing some calculations based on past velocity as well. But in the end, I think it's just doing a little bit of vector math, which shouldn't be that big a deal. I think. So, yeah. I'll probably just go for it, to be honest with you. If I'm like walking through it in my mind, if you think that your NPCs really could benefit from the motion matching, and of course it's just easier to set up than a normal state machine as well, especially if your NPCs like shares animations and are like retargeted, or just share the same skeleton with your player animations as well. You just have to set up one database and you're good to go. I probably just go for it. Because I do think that, and this is a little bit of a slippery slope argument, I know, but I do think that, like, if you're just replicating, not replicating as a multiplayer, but if you're just like instancing like 10 to 20 NPCs, it's probably not going to be that big a deal. And if it is going to be that big a deal to instance like a lot like 100 plus of a certain character, I'm assuming that the actual bottlenecks of that you're going to run into in different places before you would run into it due to this, because you probably run into things like poly counts on like the GPU for rendering purposes before you actually run into a CPU bottleneck on the trajectory components. Is my guess. Again, haven't tested this, haven't read up on it that much, but that is what I feel like. Yeah, 100 plus is going to be taxing no matter what. So that's kind of like my argument there is, I feel like by the time you really get into a point where that component might start being taxing, you're gonna have way more like bigger problems to fix first. That's my hunch anyway. I might be entirely wrong. Like, if you try it out and you figure that it... Dash attack? We'll look into that in a moment. If you try it out and you figure out that it is... Why do I have this fucking montage twice? And you figure out that it is like significantly impactful, do feel free to like come back and tell me that I'm an idiot, because I would very much like to know that as well. Now, let's try to not get distracted while adding these last couple of notifies so that we can actually like do this shit. There we go. And then slow attack, which is actually like one of the best animations that I've made for this game, I feel. Which is insane because it still sucks. I'm not an animator, okay? Very much not. People ask non-related questions all the time. It's fine. I'm the one who like actually responds, so it's my fault for getting distracted. But then again, if I wanted to make like productive progress on stuff, I wouldn't stream. Like part of the streaming thing is that it's fun for you guys, hopefully, to watch me work. But it's also kind of just like hanging out, just having fun, not necessarily needing to be like laser focusing on everything. It does mean that I make slower progress, but like that's my fault, not anybody watching. Well, no, it is you guys' fault, but like I don't blame you. Okay, animation montage. Do I even have an animation montage? I must, because I'm playing... Yeah, I'm playing slots. I'm doing this all solo, so everything you're seeing is me. So I'm doing modeling, texturing, animation, coding, level design. Like, okay, this is a very bad example because this is a non-textured room. But like all this shit here is me. It's all me. It's all fucking me. Which means that some stuff is sometimes a little bit subpar. If I'm being like 100% with you. Well, not everything is me. These coffins I had made by a freelance artist. As well as... Oh, the actual scythe weapon that the boss has. And that's some fireworks. The actual like scythe weapon, so like this one, I also had made by a freelancer for a Fiverr sponsored video. But everything else in this game is 100% me. There's a couple of temporary materials somewhere that are from Unreal's library. What's it called again? I don't know. It doesn't really matter. Anyway, event graph. Why are people setting off fireworks, by the way? Like, what the actual, like, why? Like, it's the 30th of April. What fucking reason could you have? Spring fireworks, I guess? Notify... Weapon on. Notify... Weapon off. The animation tutorial with that character. With this character? Did I make an animation tutorial with him? Huh. I forgot. I know that I made an animation tutorial. Oh! You mean this little fucker? Yeah, no, that was a while ago. That's true. I did make that. It's quite basic animation advice, though. Like, I know the theory behind animation. I'm just not particularly great always at putting it in practice. But that's also because, like, a part of that is because I'm bad at rigging. Which hopefully Unreal's new rigging tools will help kind of fix up. Who knows? We're just going to cast to BP Reaper. Is it bad to cast this like individually every single time? Technically yes, but it's also like only gonna happen once every like a couple times a minute at most, right? So I actually just straight up don't care. Set weapon. I think I set weapon active. Set active. Weapon trail. I had a function for this. I just don't remember what it is. Did I make that specifically on the night boss? Boss base. Set trail active. It's just weapon trail active. I feel like that also should set the collision on the weapon. For now, the collision doesn't matter. Set trail active. We're just gonna copy that over and set trail active to false. Simpler it is, the better the art for my taste. I kind of agree. Like a lot of this stuff is like fairly simple in terms of, okay, it's quite low resolution at the moment for some reason because video memory issues. Like, but a lot of this is quite simple in its art, right? Maybe actually if I set this to low, maybe that'll... No, it's just all the video memory being used. That's fine. I quite like that as well. Like, it doesn't have to be hyper realistic. Matter of fact, I actually think that I would prefer the game to look a little bit more stylized than it does right now, but we'll probably like fix it up at some point. Maybe some more post-processing will do that. I don't know. That should in theory have done what I needed it to do, which was like a 3-minute task, but I'm starting to lose focus. I've been doing this for like an hour and a half now. Actually over 2 hours, never mind. Okay, so the trail is off. Like the outline shader, that is... Yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Yeah, it's no big deal to cast to the owner of an animation blueprint, because like by the time this asset gets loaded, the owner is loaded anyway, right? But this is still a dynamic cast, which both classes are loaded, but it's still comparing to check whether like this input that is given, which I think is just a pawn, whether or not that is matching with the class of BP Reaper Boss. So that dynamic cast still does take some computation to do, because it's still doing a comparative thing between two classes. So it's not about the loading in necessarily, because you're right, both are already loaded. It's still doing the comparing, which isn't that heavy, but it is calculation that doesn't necessarily need to exist. Like, if you really want to do this properly, you like put in a sequence and you like do once and you put it in a variable and whatever. But I don't care. It's really what it comes down to. So, let's change up the way Move Along Spline works. So instead of setting the actor location, we make a... Oh, we already have an F vector for location. That will be our target location, and then we'll make a F vector for the actual location, and that will be... Actually, it will be get actor location plus... We'll do one more. We'll get a direction. F vector direction is target location minus get actor location. Direction normalize. Get actor location, speed delta time. Yeah, I think that should do it. In theory. But I do agree with what you... Well, you didn't say that, but... Generally, I like when people know not to cast everywhere. Like, I've made like 2 or 3 videos about it as well. But I also get really annoyed when people want to avoid casting at any cost because they've been told that it's bad without actually like knowing the reasons why it's bad and when it's not a big deal. Like here, it's not a big deal. Again, this is going to be done like once or twice a minute. The classes themselves are already in memory, so it's only doing the comparative part. It's fine, right? So I actually do plan on making a video sometime like next month, probably. Like why casting isn't the root of all evil. Explaining like, hey people, I know you've been told that casting is bad, but like it exists for a reason. Like if it was only bad, it just wouldn't be a thing, right? Like that's just not how decision making in programming works. Like this thing is bad, this thing is good. And for the most part, yeah, using an interface is going to be more performative, like I think almost always, if not just straight up always. But you're also like a person like making a game, right? So ease of workflow is an element to take into account. And I just get really annoyed with people who skip over that. Because again, for the most part, I feel like it's people who are meaning well, but it's people who have generally just like heard you shouldn't cast and then repeat that without actually like being aware of all the context. Anyway, enough complaining from me, and that's exactly what I want. There we go. That's the shit. I want to multiply the speed at which he goes back to his loop by 2 though. But again, I want to reiterate that I am aware that like people warning others of casting generally don't have like ill intent. But it gets a little annoying when people show up in your comments saying that I wish people would not teach to use casting, blah, 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 as if it's like a YouTubers are ruining game development because they don't understand what they're doing, and then that comment itself stems from ignorance. Like that's like what? Why? Right? What? Enough complaining from me. Anyway, void get closest spline point. Get closest point on spline. I don't know if a function exists for this. This also should probably not be a void. Maybe it's a float. Well, actually, we can just set the distance along spline. So set distance to closest points. I feel like this function doesn't exist. So we're going to try it out here. Spline. Components. Find. U spline component find. We'll just get the U spline component and check out the functions that exist on this. How about that? Variables. It's probably a function, right? Add point. Add points. Add spline points, local, add spline points, add spline point at index, add spline world point, apply component instance data, clear spline points, draw, find direction closest to world location. Given a location in world space, return a unit direction vector of the spline tangent closest to that location. That's not really what I want. Find input key closest to world location. Given a location in world space, return the input key closest to that location. I think that might be what we want. Actually. Oh, find location closest to world location. Given a location in world space, return the point on the curve that is closest to that location. And that returns a vector. So that just returns a location. Does it return a location in world space or in local space? Like this returns a float, which makes me think it's going to return the distance along spline. Find input key closest to world location. What does that do? Component get transform, inverse transform position. Spline curves position, find nearest. Can we dive deep enough into this to the point where I can figure out for sure? Okay, find nearest. Hold on. This takes in a point in space, out distance and out segment. It gets the number of points. Checks whether or not it's looped. If number of points is still greater than 1. Find nearest on segment. It does a find nearest on segment, so that feels like it is actually returning a point on the spline and not a spline point. That is a distinction that I wanted to make sure that it does. So this returns a float, right? So in theory, we should say distance along spline is just equal to that. And when it starts moving back, we just should set this once, and then we, yeah, I think if we just make this blueprint callable, and I should open up my chat again. I'm going to open up my app here real quick. That's the reason why, because my phone set itself to standby mode. Usually when I am working with this is I have my OBS page open, but I need to have my Unreal page open and then go to coding and then okay, so the idea why I set up macros is that I can just say, hey, U function, blueprint callable, that's it. And this might now need to be not private actually, because it's going to need to be called by something else. So we set this to the public section, which I deleted because I didn't make one yet. Public, boom. Okay, so once we have this working, I think we're going to call it a day because it'll have been 2.5 hours and something's fucked. Find closest word location function does not take 3 arguments. Then how many does it take? Oh, it's probably... It just takes in a vector, right? Can you please just show me what it takes? Usually just hovering over does the thing. Takes a world location and a coordinate space, so it doesn't take a... Does it have an override for only... we'll just do it in world space to be sure. We want it to be in world space anyway. But if it's that easy to get that information, cannot convert from a vector to float. So this does return a vector. It returns a vector. Find location closest to word location. Oh yeah, it's because I'm using the wrong fucking thing. Find input key closest to word location, which is just, yeah, close to word location already. So it doesn't even need to have a coordinate space. That's cool. Successfully linked. And there we go. So now at the end here of the Reaper attack, whichever it may be, it's right over there. When we do is on spline, we first also do set distance to closest point. And that should then sample the closest point to it on the spline and move toward that instead of the point that it was just at. Because it feels a little bit weird that it dashes towards you and then just kind of floats back to the location where it came from. Instead, it's just going to get to the closest point on the spline to where it is at that moment. He is a little... Yeah, you see? So that is a lot better. He's a little jittery, though. He's a little jittery. And that is because... Oh, the move along spline is just multiplied by 2. That is true. But that shouldn't be a problem now anymore, actually. So we can just remove the multiplied by 2 because it's always going to move towards something close to where he's at the moment anyway. So the fact that he's like very slowly moving backward from you should actually just straight up not be a problem anymore. I think. I hope. I don't think he's jittery anymore, so that's a good thing. Yeah, so it picked a very weird spot to move to there for some reason. So it's not entirely bug free, and I'm not sure why it did that, to be honest with you. Because it's like literally moving through another point on the spline. It's just like, I think the thing is when it moves outside the spline is when it does that. Huh. Okay, that's slightly odd. That is slightly weird. Is it always going back to position 0? Is that what's happening? Well, it's not always going back, but when it does that, it's going back to position 0. So... that might just be because it can't find a position or something. Whenever it does this, let's also ulog. Like, let's float distance equals that. And then we'll set this to float distance. And then we also want to log distance. I feel like it's just getting 0 sometimes, which might just be an issue with that function, which... Oh, no, that's entirely my bad. Okay, let's output log, doc and layouts. It's a lot of warnings that we're going to ignore. Okay. Closest point is 3.375. It's very oddly specific. Okay, I think I know what's happening. And I don't like it. What this is doing is it's not returning a float for how far along the spline it is. It is returning... We can get that information from this. What it's doing is it's saying, okay, this is 0 to 1, and 1 to 2, and 2 to 3, and it's returning the closest point in like that notation, rather than the continuous just like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, just linear distance. Hello, the running bird in Twitch chat. How are you doing today? I'm just going to maybe hope that Copilot can fix this for me. Convert distance to distance along spline. You're gonna do a thing? Please do a thing. Oh my god. Okay. This is what I remember having to deal with before as well. Okay, yes. Float distance at point X. And then we get distance dot floor. And then we have float distance at point Y. We do a ceiling. Get fraction, is that just the decimals that it returns? Let's see. Float result. Result is... I think that might just be the decibels. Decimals. But I'm going to check that anyway real quick. Float. Get fraction. So we have a number like 3.14 like pi. We want to end up with only the fraction, assuming our stored number is stored in float f. We can do this. F is f minus long f. That is f minus long f. I think fraction should do the same, but this should now return the actual distance. I think, right? Because we are now interpolating between these two values. I'm pretty sure this returns what I wanted to return. And if it's not, we'll figure it out. Hello, everybody joining in. What do you mean lerp is a fucking unknown type? Expects 2 arguments. Am I going insane? Oh, right. Mine is not called f, mine is called distance. I just copied over what I saw on... Still an issue. Left of floor must have a class construct... oh, hold on. This needs to be... math floor to int. You know what? That actually works. And then math seal to int. Okay, with all that, I think we should now be getting what we want to be getting. Which is no more compiling errors. That's a fantastic start. Now the question is, are we going to be returning an actual like distance value instead of like a key value? Because that's what we really want. It seems like we are, because that's like 6,000 something. That feels like it is a distance value and not a key value. And it also seems like it's probably accurate. Yeah. I did feel a little bit of snapping there, though. I think. For the most part, that seems pretty good. So we're going to separate this out into its own function as well, because we're probably going to use this function to calculate the player's distance to the spine as well. Which, to be honest, this might just like be a good thing to take into a functional library as well, in case we need it anywhere else. For now, we're just going to stick it on here, but we don't need to log this anymore. So we just take this out, and we can do it and protect it. That's fine. I feel like we might want to make this a U function, but for now we'll just do this. Find closest point on spline. Wait, didn't I have another? Oh, that's just set distance. Yeah, that makes sense. And that's not going to be a void. That's going to be a float, because it's going to return the distance. So this will be a float. It will take in a f vector for the location, and that will do that. It should be fine. So let's copy this signature again and replace it here, of course, taking out the class. And then set this one to being distance along spline equal to find closest point, actor location. I've been using the wrong scene the entire time. Should have been using this one to not have the bar wasting any of your screen space. Boss header 52. No semicolon. Gotta fucking love it. Then again, I still do prefer it over like Python, who doesn't use semicolons. Just still fucking insane to me. It's like reading a text without punctuation. Honestly. So let's check whether or not it still works. And if it does, we'll get the hell out of here. It seems to still work. Fantastic. So, like the basic idea of... We haven't done like any actual AI related stuff, right? But the one thing that I was also afraid of is him getting stuck on the fountain. Like if we actually like try to stay at exactly the other side, he kind of does slip through the fountain, which is kind of funny. But honestly, I might just try to make him face through the fountain instead, just like make him ignore the fountain's collision. Because he is like a ghost, right? And right now this feels very buggy, the way that he clips through the fountain. But I don't know, maybe it's fine. But yeah, we haven't actually done any AI stuff at this point. We've just kind of done like his basic movement set. And some of the... Oh, that attack animation probably should have been touched up a little bit as well. Also, that happens. That's even without the knockback ability. With the knockback ability, it's going to get rid of that because it overrides root motion. But it's quite funny how like just the shape of the scythe results in that, because you get caught in here and all that momentum gets carried through. So that's kind of funny. For now, that's going to be it for today. It's been quite a long stream. It's over 2.5 hours. I was going to finish editing a podcast after this because I need to run on that overnight. So I need to get the hell into doing that. And I'll be back on Thursday. Hopefully I will actually be back on Thursday this time. It's been a while. Like the last 2 or 3 weeks, streaming has been kind of irregular because I've been working on a devlog video where I develop for 12 hours on this game, and that kind of took like my soul out of me. And then last week work was just fucking exploding all over the place. Like I had a lot of work to do. So I decided, like, let's just not do a Thursday stream. Next week should be, or this week should be fine. This weekend I'll be having to edit through that 12 hours of footage though, but that's not going to impact my streaming schedule. So yeah, I'll be back on Thursday doing probably actually like the AI portion of this, like the behavior tree portion, and get all that sorted out, and then we have to go back doing some more animations. But well, actually, this character, I was gonna say before we do that, we'll probably end up doing the conversion to 5.4, but that's not going to help with this rig, because I'm not going to re-rig and then reanimate everything. So we'll probably finish up those animations then, and at that point the boss fight is kind of finished. Like we need to give him stats and we need to like do a lot of stuff, but the actual boss fight itself will be finished, and the entire thing will have been documented on stream. At which point I'm probably not going to do every boss fight like this because it's been months. And it kind of does hold back like progression. So things that we'll be doing on stream will probably be like a little bit more one-off after we finish this boss for a while. But we'll do the behavior tree stuff next time. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks everybody for stopping by and watching and hanging out and asking questions and just generally being awesome. And I'll see you all back next time.